the Pakistan Air Force, they actually went on to doing something which no other Air Force had done earlier in the history of aviation. And that is that they made four new commands. And these commands were based on capability and not on human resource. On the night between 6th and 7th, we saw multi-domain operations being conducted by the Pakistan Air Force. Now, it is very important to understand what were those multi-domain operations, because at the end of the multi-domain operations, we achieved what we wanted to achieve, and that was breaking the morale of the Indian Air Force to fight against a much leaner but a smarter Air Force, which is Pakistan Air Force. That they not only devised this plan, they also practiced it for the last 2.5 years. So once they employed it, they were masters at it, and they did it brilliantly. And the second thing which this EW command did was that they did not let any chain or any data link to be broken by the Indians. That where we fired a number of missiles, and the results is in front of you, the Indian Air Force could not fire a single meteor from the Rafale.
Watch Federal Post. Bold and independent.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Hassan Zafar with Talking Politics. We are lucky to have former Air Marshal of Pakistan Air Force, Janab Saeed Khan sir, with us. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. I am very excited about this interview because of what you told me a few days ago, that you are in possession of full knowledge of what happened between the nights of 6th and 7th of May when Pakistan Air Force and Indian Air Force, the two air forces, came face to face. So please, over to you, sir. Enlighten us with whatever you know to put the record straight for the future generations to benefit from it.
Thank you very much, Hassan, for providing this opportunity. In simple words, I will say is that what we saw on the 6th and 7th night, as well as on the 10th of May, was actually victory over mind, over assets. If we look at the assets which were employed by India this time against Pakistan, both technologically and in numbers, they were far superior than what we had on our side. Therefore, to counter them, we had to do something, out of the ordinary. And I am so very glad that the Pakistan Air Force and its leadership of now under Air Chief Marshal Babar, they thought of this situation not today or in 2025, but they envisaged this situation back somewhere in 2022, 2023, and then they started working to counter such a situation. Number two, it is, as the air battle was evolving since the 20th century, it was very easy to predict that, a future conflict between India and Pakistan will not be fought on conventional methodology, and it will be a BVR combat between both the air forces. Since 1998, when both the countries went nuclear, it was imperative that each country had to find that space in the subconventional domain where they could, put their pressure on the other party. And India, since then, had been trying to do that with us since 1999. And we all are aware of the 4 times India forced us to enter into a conflict with them. Okay. So the Pakistan Air Force, they actually went on to doing something which no other Air Force had done earlier in the history of aviation. And that is that they made 4 new commands. And these commands were based on capability and not on human resource. And these commands were the Electronic Warfare Command, or the EW Command, the Cyber Command, the Space Command, and the Pakistan Unmanned Force. Now, these were the four things that had to be integrated with the kinetic forces that we had. By kinetic forces, I mean the conventional air combat elements like ground-based radars, AEWs, AVACs, fighters, and with their missiles and everything. So once after the Pahalgam issue, once India was threatening us with certain, retaliation, we realized that this is the time to employ this thing. And then Air Chief Marshal Babar activated all his forces. And on the night between 6th and 7th, we saw multi-domain operations being conducted by the Pakistan Air Force. Now, it is very important to understand what were those multi-domain operations, because at the end of the multi-domain operations, we achieved what we wanted to achieve, and that was breaking the morale of the Indian Air Force to fight against a much leaner but a smarter Air Force, which is Pakistan Air Force. So we were able to achieve that, but it was not done through sheer force, but it was done with the sheer application of mind. And that is, I think, which once this warfare will be intellectually discussed at staff colleges, people will highlight this point in the same way. So what happened was that once the once the forces were arrayed against each other, we felt that, the air battle theater has gone to as wide as something like 500, 600 kilometers. Now, this meant that there could be, there is no ground radar, there is no airborne early warning system, which can give you accessibility or visibility to this range. So therefore, Pakistan Air Force had to build a kill chain, which comprised of satellites, which comprised of AEWs and AVACs, which comprised of fighters, and which comprised of the missiles that way. Now, after 2019, India went on a major buying spree, and they specially went in to buy the best Western aircraft which was available to them, and that was Rafale. Though we have been able to achieve what we wanted to achieve against Rafale, but we should never undermine its ability. It is a very fine machine with a very good capability, but if in the right hands. Right?
The French must be happy to listen to this. Yes, I know.
So, once they went in for that, this was the time when Babar, along with his team, thought that we have to do something out of the box to achieve the element of surprise on them. Because if you read The Art of War, the first rule to fighting with your enemy is to give him a surprise. Because if you give him a surprise, then the chances of victory increase manifold. If we go weapon to weapon and missile to missile, then they were probably better armed than what we were armed. And that is where, the Pakistan Air Force brought in these four new commands. And with the help of these commands, integrating them with the kinetic force, they were able to generate multi-domain operations. Now, if you give me time, I'll try to explain to you that what multi-domain operations. Okay. So the first one, which was which we should talk about, is the EW command, or the Electronic Warfare Command. The Electronic Warfare Command was primarily based on AEWs, AVACs, and ground-based air defense radars. And when the Indians, they launched their offensive, the first step they took was to neutralize the Indian offensive by denying aircraft access to radar data and satellite feeds. You need to understand, Hassan, that when the different elements of the kill chain are talking to each other, that that system of communication is called data link. And
Right.
if you break that data link where the people are talking to each other, then nobody knows that what is the other element doing. And this was the success of the EW command, that as soon as the aircraft got airborne in India, they were able to break this link. And we would say that they broke the aircraft access to radar data and satellite feeds. So their connection within the formations and their connection with the AEW and the satellites was broken. ठीक है ना? This created, first of all, panic among them, because they never thought that what is happening with them. And that is where there was a window where the J-10s sneaked in silently and were able to launch their missiles in the silent. Being in the silent mode means that they launched the missiles without having a radar lock onto the target aircraft. Now, this was again something which has never been done in any aerial combat before. But again, I would like to praise the air staff of the Pakistan Air Force at this time under Air Chief Marshal Babar, that they not only devised this plan, they also practiced it for the last 2.5 years. So once they employed it, they were masters at it, and they did it brilliantly. And the second thing which this EW command did was that they did not let any chain or any data link to be broken by the Indians. And will you believe it, Hassan, that where we fired a number of missiles, and the results is in front of you, the Indian Air Force could not fire a single meteor from the Rafales.
For the sake of clarity, one thing I want to understand, that when the Pakistani jets locked missiles on the Indian jets, the electronic warfare capability did not allow the Indian jets to show that they have been locked. Is that?
No, they did not lock the Indian jets at all.
Okay. Then
right? So try to understand.
blocking.
Let me explain it to you.
Yes, please.
Let me explain it to you. Now, it was actually the EW command, the cyber command, and the space command which were actually working in unison. The space command, what it was doing was that it was giving a three-dimensional 360 degrees picture to our AVACs as well, and that picture was being relayed to our fighters. Right now, PL-15 has a capability that you can actually feed in coordinates of the target while before the launch of the missile by the pilot himself over there. So when you have satellites looking at the aircraft, Indian aircraft, in a in a theater which is 1,000 kilometers in dia, and you exactly know that which aircraft is where, then all you have to do is that you have to give the coordinates of the target aircraft to the AEW, which in turn gives it to the pilot, and the pilot feeds it into the missile. Now, once a missile is fired, the target aircraft, the launch aircraft does not lock the target aircraft, because the moment it locks, the target aircraft is going to come to know that it is being locked.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to understand.
It has suites on board, on board, which give it this information, and then the target aircraft is able to give its position also. Now, if you look at the region over there, the AVAC which Indians were using was the Israeli Falcon. Right now, it had a little limitation, and that limitation was that you have to, if you are at a certain altitude and you have a beam, even if that beam is directed downwards, there is always a blank area, right? So if the aircraft ingress in from that blind zone, right, the time by which the aircraft would actually be detected would be very critical for the fight. So the Pakistan Air Force aircraft utilized tactics in which the detection was delayed, and that delayed detection allowed them to launch missiles from longer ranges. So once, let's say, a ground-based radar was able to detect an aircraft uh, deep into enemy territory, like let's say 300, 350 kilometers, that aircraft was then picked up by the AEW, and the AEW gave the coordinates of that aircraft to the launch aircraft or the missile aircraft. The missile was fired. After the missile was fired, it was being controlled by the AVAC itself. And till the time the missile's radar came on board, and that is generally 50 to 60 nautical miles before impact, or and that is in terms of time is something like 9 to 10 seconds, right? So the Rafales actually never got the information of being blocked, and when they got that information, then uh, they could not talk to each other, and as such, the pilots got hit without even knowing that what is happening with them,
Hmm.
because they could not, because simultaneously the EW command had stopped their communication with each other. So the tactical communication which is between the formation was also degraded to that level that the Indians did not know that what is happening with them.
So the
If they
aircraft were
wanted to
not able
talk to their
to.
command centers, sorry, if they wanted to talk to their command centers, it was not allowed because of jamming. And if they wanted to talk within the formations, it was not also possible because the communication was degraded to that level where they could not assist each other. And that is why, if you see on that night, they just made their aircraft land in Srinagar, refuel, and then they took them back to Gwalior and Bhatinda.
Okay, beyond the range of these PL-15 missiles. So what
Missile.
I'm trying to understand that because these Indian aircrafts had no knowledge of what was actually going on because their systems were jammed. So and these BVRs, beyond visual range missiles, even when they came within the range, their radars were not able to detect those missiles until the impact took place.
No, yes. One, number two, the Pakistan Air Force aircraft never came on the radars because we stayed away that long. This is what I'm saying. It is, victory of mind over tactics,
Hmm.
simple tactics, right? The
Right.
Pakistan Air Force devised tactics in which we never appeared on the radar of the Rafale. We stayed out of it.
Uh,
We
and
did not,
Marshal Saab,
and
I've seen our audience making comments that you are revealing the secrets of Pakistan Air Force by discussing these things so openly. So, and the next time the Indians will know exactly what you did, and they will be better prepared for it. So, how do you respond to this one?
I think I would give all benefit of intelligence to the Indians. They would actually be knowing it, and if they do a analysis, which they must be doing up till now, they would now know that what actually happened to them. So surprise is only for the first time that surprise is employed. To think that the enemy would never know about this thing would be foolish. And to think that we would apply the same tactics again would be more foolish.
Exactly. So, next time they
So the
will.
Pakistan Air Force as of today has only used 5 to 10% of its capability. And let me give you another news, which I was also very pleasantly surprised, that most of the capabilities that we have in the EW or cyber domain is all indigenous. Nothing has been acquired. So it is our own young generation which has, made these things. And I think the credit goes to the leadership of the PF, which thought of these ideas, gave the kids the confidence to develop things. The kids developed those things. They practiced it. Like I'm saying, when they went into combat on the night of the 6th, Pakistan Air Force was not doing something for the first time themselves. They had practiced these tactics for the last 2.5 years. So they were masters at it.
And they're more confident about it now.
Yes. So, to think that the enemy by this time would not have, known what happened to them would be keeping ourselves into a fallacy. I would give all the intelligence, to the enemy and think that they would have by now realized what actually happened with them.
Because the Indian Chief of Defense Staff, Mr. Anil Chauhan, he made this statement during an interview, the interview in which he admitted the downing of the aircrafts, that we studied what the PAF had done. And after 2 days, our aircrafts were airborne again, and we went on with our offensive. Did it actually happen, or was he just making the Indians feel better by saying that we went for the offensive again?
I would say, I think the second part of your statement is correct. After the 6th and 7th night, we did not see Rafales up in the air at all. Yes, their aircraft were flying like the MiG-29s and the Su-30s, but at long distances, not in the offensive mode, but in the in the defensive mode. And
Right.
that is expected. No Air Force can be completely grounded. An Air Force as big as having almost 1,000 fighter aircraft cannot be grounded all of a sudden. But their main, weapon, which was Rafale, the one on which they thought they will have victory over Pakistan, never flew again after
Never
the
flew
6th.
again. How many Rafales did come down? Now we know for sure.
3 is confirmed. The 4th is also there. But the Air Force is looking for more, Pakistan Air Force is looking for more evidence to claim it.
Okay. The 4th, in which the squadron leader Shivangi Singh was flying, because she is missing as well as the aircraft is missing. The aircraft and the pilot have not been seen after that, but we don't have reasons to make any claims so far.
You have to understand, Hassan, one thing, that in a combat which is BVR versus BVR, the wreckage will never fall in enemy territory. The wreckage will always fall in your own territory, right? So therefore, to have this, to have wreckage as a thing to verify a kill is no more. This option will not hold good in future. But there are other sources, there are other ways of authenticating a kill. And when Pakistan Air Force claimed 3 Rafales, we were very sure that we have those kills. And since then, even the French and the Indians themselves have not contested that. They have agreed to.
You told us in the beginning that the Indian aircraft versus the slim Pakistani Air Force, or the Indian Air Force versus slim Pakistani. Now, I have a ready data with me, data of 4 generation and 4.5 generation aircrafts, which both the Air Forces possess. They have Su-30s, 260, MiG-29, 69, Mirage 2000, 49, Jaguars 120, and Rafales now 37, not 40. So, and we have JF-17 Thunder Block 3, 23, and 27 are on the way, because 50 are listed. J-10C 20, we have 20, and the 36 is the number that we shall be having. So the total is, if we combine 4.5 and 4 generation and 4 generation aircraft, Indians have about 500 and Pakistanis have about 254. It's that's the balance.
1:2.
Yes, 1:2. So that's the balance. But so how do you see that in the event of an all-out war? as the Indians are talking about the possibility of an all-out war because their air force will be stretched across eastern, northeastern, and western border. How do you see these numbers coming?
In case of an all-out war, Hassan, the numbers do matter, right? But I think both the countries being nuclear, both the countries would be wise enough not to go into a full-fledged conventional war, because we have already war gamed it, a million times, that eventually a conventional war will transit into a nuclear exchange.
Hmm.
And until and unless both the countries are willing to accept millions of deaths on both sides, right, it would be foolish to go into a conventional conflict.
Certainly.
And that is why I told you that, we will be engaging each other in the subconventional domain. And that also we will, test each other's limit, how much can the other party take in that domain.
Right. Because I was compelled to say this because their external affairs minister, S. Jaishankar, he made the statement in Europe today that we are willing to go deep inside Pakistan against that kind of jingoism which he has been using for last several
It
months.
is time, Hassan, for the Indians to think now that, both the countries have other bigger issues to look into. We should look after our populace. We should look at their betterment. We should look at their human development. And, there are, and all issues, irrespective, eventually have to be settled on the negotiating table. So
Yeah.
the earlier we come down to the negotiating table, the better it will be for both the countries, and
Exactly.
it will
Totally
be
agree.
respectable also for both the countries.
But a reasonable, respectable negotiating table where both parties are sitting on the equal footing. But if the Indians keep thinking of themselves as big and mighty, and they are who are talking from a position of power, so then what kind of negotiating table are we talking about?
I agree with you,
Yes,
and I think they would be. I think twice in 6 years we have told them that we are very well capable of defending our borders and inflicting, a big damage to them. 2019, we shot down their aircraft, and they had to go back with a sorry face. And in 2025, the same happened. They came with in a very bombastic way, but they had to retreat and ask for a ceasefire through their friends,
well, they've
right?
made it a habit
So,
now.
huh.
Now,
But so
yeah,
I think the Indians have to think about themselves that, if they think that by force they can do it, Pakistan is not the country through which they can coerce through force. But yes, on the, if they can sit down on the negotiating table and talk to us about Kashmir, talk with us about the water treaty, about Shimla, without all those disputes that need to be resolved, I think both the countries have sensible leadership to resolve those issues.
at least I can say that more confidently about the military leadership on both sides because their political leadership is not sounding that sensible, but their military leadership and Air Force leadership, they sound quite reasonable.
Hassan, if you look at pre 6th, 7th May, what was happening in India, I would like to second your statement which you have given. They had to sack their vice chief of the air staff. They had to sack their Indian military commander of the north. They had to sack the DG of intelligence in that area. And, once you have taken out your top men in that area, it is giving a straight message to everybody that your military commanders are not agreeing to your political objectives.
Exactly.
And
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 they are
now what has
good
happened after
professional
that?
soldiers. They must have
Yes.
told them the reality, and which was not in line with their political thoughts.
Absolutely, Hassan, you are right, because the subsequent events proved those people to be right. They
Exactly.
were they were talking sense to the political leadership, and I think the political leadership now has to listen.
Hope so.
to their military commanders.
Okay, but thank you very much for all these details, Air Marshal Saab. One more thing I would like to raise with you is the eagerness of Muslim countries buying high-tech weaponry and jets from Muslim countries like Pakistan. How is this change taking place?
I also read this news today and I was very happy on it. I think countries like Pakistan and Turkey have a lot to offer to our friends in the Muslim world. And we have now proven it through, skirmishes that we have gone into, that our weapons are as good or as bad as the Western weapons, but maybe at 1/10 the price. Right.
Thank you very
So
much, sir.
when I actually read the news to which you are referring today,
Yes,
somewhere, I wanted to read that Indonesia has cancelled its Rafale deal and has gone for Khan.
but at
But I
the
think
same time, Azerbaijan has shown interest in Pakistan's JF-17.
JF-17.
Yes,
And I think the deal with Azerbaijan has almost been finalized. If I'm not,
almost. Yes,
I think
so that's a very
$4.6
good
billion
news.
deal.
That's a very good
Yes,
news.
and GF-17 is only one product that we can offer. There are so many products that which are battle tested, which have proved to be good. Like I said, we can do a lot of things, and I
Certainly.
know for sure one thing is that our friends now want to get trained by the Pakistan Air Force, because they have really seen that how Pakistan Air Force uses the assets that are at its disposal with clarity of thought, with ingenuity of tactics, and how they make a bad situation also into a good one and win the battle.
I'm sure that will be the case in all times to come. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and sharing all these details with us. And I hope that you also enjoyed listening to Air Marshal Saab and what he has shared with us. Take care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz in Pakistan Zindabad.